Hey, Dan here with Fanatic Bike Co. I brought you all out here today to do some back-to-back testing with Fox's outgoing RC2 damper that I have mounted up to my fork here. And we're going to swap it out with their brand new GRIP2 damper. So anyways, we will talk a little bit about the differences between these two and how I felt they performed differently. But for now, let's go and do some testing on this here RC2 damper. Just wrapped up a couple laps on Backdoor, one of my favorite trails here in Bellingham up on Galbraith Mountain, fairly close to the Backdoor at Fanatic Bike Co. So I brought my DaVinci Django 2.9er in to do a little bit of work. This is my everyday rider, sort of my test bike. We'll be doing a bike check on this here fairly soon, so keep an eye out for that. But what we're here to talk about today is the fork. I've got a 2018 year model Fox Performance Elite 36. This is actually a reduced offset fork. In this case, it uses the crown steer unit from a 27.5 fork that actually has reduced offset up here in the crown unit, bringing it down to 44 millimeter offset instead of the typical 51 that we see on most 29-inch forks. The reason I did that, my other bike is a 2018 Transition Patrol. I wanted to see how some of the stuff that they do with their speed balance geometry, their SBG, would affect a different bike, so testing that out. That's not what we're here to talk about. I've already pulled the RC2 damper out of this fork. That stands for Rebound and 2 compression adjustments. This has been Fox's top tier damper for a long time now, since I believe 2007. That's not to say that the damper hasn't changed since then, just that the architecture has been the same. It uses this expanding rubber bladder that you can see pumping up as I compress the damper to sort of provide back pressure on the oil. This is a completely closed system. Now, this has obviously been a highly successful damper, that's why they've kept it in the lineup, but 2 years ago when Fox introduced their line of grip forks, their performance forks and their grip dampers, they found that it had some benefits. Not only was it easier to maintain and service, but it actually had fewer seals in it, so it was offering a little bit less friction than some of their other completely closed rubber bladder dampers. They started tinkering with it, and what they ended up with was their GRIP2 damper that I have here. This is their new high-end damper. This is coming in their Fox 36 and Fox 40 forks for 2019. It is also offered as a retrofittable standalone damper that you can pop in like I'm about to do. Still has the 2 independent compression circuits, as well as now high and low speed rebound adjustment. This thing's pretty cool. One of the big differences, and actually one of the things that allowed them to manufacture that original grip damper more inexpensively, less expensively, is that it uses a spring-backed IAFP. That's an internal floating piston that sits right behind this little bleed port you see here. And as that floating piston kind of moves up and down on its shaft, it passes over this detent, this channel. So what that means is that if air gets into this system, it can come out. It's replaced by oil that has backfilled on top of that floating piston, and it allows the damper to bleed itself. This means no more vacuum bleeding at the factory, makes it a little less expensive for Fox to manufacture. It also makes it easier to service because you don't have to completely disassemble this thing if air gets into the system. This thing's pretty cool. I'm excited to try it out. First, I wanted to see if there was a big weight difference between the two. I anticipate it'll be a little bit heavier because obviously, as you can tell, there's a bit more going on. There's more oil, although that does have some performance benefits. But let's see what the actual difference is. Now I've got the RC2 damper here. RC2 damper is weighing in at 236 grams. And the new GRIP2 damper weighs 278 grams. So we're looking about a 40-gram difference. That's really not that bad, especially when you consider that people are putting metal springs into their forks now to reduce stiction. It seems like as other components have come down in weight, we're willing to add a little bit of weight back to our suspension to get that increased performance. I'm going to throw this thing into my bike now because you don't want to keep hearing about all the techno mumbo jumbo. You want to see which one's better. So I'm going to get this in. I'm going to go back up to the trail and do some more laps, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so I've got the GRIP2 damper installed on my bike. We're going to head back up to the trail back door, do a couple more rounds, see which one I think is better, and talk about why. Obviously, this isn't a hugely scientific study, not a big sample size. We are going to try and do as much as we can to keep things constant, though. Obviously, same bike. I'm keeping the air pressure in the air side of the fork the same trail conditions. And I'm using Fox's recommended damper settings. So I've actually changed this from what I normally run that fork on, the RC2 damper that was. Running 15 clicks out for both high and low speed compression on the RC2 damper that I just pulled. I ran 10 clicks out on the Rebound. On this new GRIP2 damper, I'll write it down because I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but I believe it was 10 clicks out for high speed compression, 6 clicks out for low speed compression. This is from fully closed. 6 clicks out for high speed rebound on the bottom, and then 7 clicks out from low speed rebound. So I will put all those down below. They do vary for your weight on Fox's recommended specs. We can link to their charts for that as well. But all in all, trying to keep as many things constant here as we can. So let's get back out there and see what we think.
All right, Dan, what are your first impressions?
Yeah, no kidding. So you saw me do that little turn right up there into that G out through the creek. You saw me do it before on the RC2 damper, now swapped out to the GRIP2. And, well, I don't know that a turn and 1 G out is enough to get a real feel for any improvements, if any, but I can tell you that right off the bat, after I threw this in there, there's a notable and noteworthy difference in how much stiction there is right off the bat, like right off the top of the stroke, first 1.5 inches of travel or so. So, parking lot approved, parking lot test approved. We're gonna do a couple more runs and see how it feels. We'll talk more about it, but that's what we want is improvements. So let's get after it. Just ran through a few jumps. This fork is good. I mean, we knew the fork was good. It seems to be tracking a little bit better. Now, I know this isn't the bumpiest terrain, but I feel like I'm pushing a little bit harder into the corners. There's a lot of variables here, but I mentioned the stiction is definitely reduced, and that's going to improve traction, and that's what you want. It feels supportive. I think that has more to do with your tuning settings than the actual, decreased stiction. You can obviously adjust your low speed compression, rebound, etc. The RC2 is very well known for being very tunable and for those settings to actually do something as opposed to some other less tunable forks. So you can always play with that, but so far I'm really liking this thing. Let's give it another go. GRIP2 versus RC2, which one's better? Long story short, the GRIP2 is the better damper, which is what we'd hope. It's the brand new product. Should be an improvement. Why is that? Well, I talked about suppleness off the top. I was definitely noticing less feedback, less chatter, especially on those bumpy bits that you saw us doing slow motion on. the wheel is sticking to the ground better. And that's what forks and suspension are all about, is creating traction. I was pushing into turns a little harder when your wheel starts sliding out and giving away. That's when you stop pushing, that's when you go more slowly. And the goal of all this is to go faster and to push harder. That's what this stuff is. This is very high-end stuff, but in this case, you can actually retrofit your fork. We're selling these GRIP2 dampers standalone. They are coming on all 2019 FOX 36s. They're also offering these reduced offset forks that I mentioned. I'm running one. You can play around with that. You can read about that in our Sentinel blog post and our Ripmo blog post. Anyways, all in all, I think the GRIP2 is a worthy upgrade. There's a number of other things. I am going to write a little more in-depth blog post to this that I'll leave a link to below when it's done. You can check that out. If you have any questions about this stuff, feel free to leave us a comment below. Happy to answer your questions. You can also always give us a phone call at 1-844-FANATIC. That's 1-844-326-2845, or shoot us an email, sales@fanaticbike.com. If you like these videos, we really appreciate when you subscribe or give us a like. We really enjoy making them. Myself, Doug, all my coworkers like getting out here and playing in the woods, checking out all the cool new stuff, and showing you, well, what we do for fun. Anyways, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.